again. In my last video I talked a little bit about, I had the guitar together and it was in playing shape, and talked a little bit about doing some tuning on it. I quickly realized I made some mistakes during my neck build and configuration, as well as the configuration of the tuning process is a pain in the butt with the with these Floyd Rose bridges. Also, I have to say the cheap Floyd Rose neck locking nuts. The locking nut is this piece right here. It has a couple of let's see if I can find it here. No, dropped it on the floor. It has a piece of metal that locks two strings at a time into place, and that just kind of bolts down and clamps onto the strings to keep the strings in better tune while you're going wild on the guitar with the tremolo. The intonation was completely wrong, so I had gotten an intonator. Quickly realized that I had made a mistake on the measurements on this guitar, and the measurements being the length of the neck from the tip of the bridge, from the tip of the nut, all the way down to the saddle of the string on the bridge when it's in playing configuration. Remember, Floyd Rose bridges are always a floating bridge, which means the string is tensions and pulls the bridge up into a level position so that you can play it properly. So you always get a tuning block in order to tune these guitars so that it helps you out. If you look underneath at the springs, right now they're pulled all the way forward, which means the bridge is angled back. That bridge should be completely level in a playing configuration. So the measurement from the nut to the saddle on a level bridge is what you would measure. And that should be 25.5 inches, I believe. So when that measurement took place, I was guessing at where it was going to be at, and I was a good half inch wrong. So what I had to do was go back and remove the neck and modify this neck again. What I did was I cut one of the frets off of the bottom of the guitar completely and removed it. I also reshaped the maple underneath that to match the contour again of this guitar, so that everything would be the right length from the saddle on the bridge all the way up to the nut, the locking nut. So now it's all in proper shape. I did string this up, as you can see the strings here. I strung it up and made sure that it was in a playable configuration where you can actually then use this wonderful tool. This is an intonation tool specifically for Floyd Rose guitars. And what this does is it took me a while to figure out the best way to use this, because this cheap Floyd Rose has these graphite nuts inside of the saddle that hold the string. With Floyd Rose guitars, you never have the little ball that you would have on the end of any of your guitar strings. You chop that ball off, you slide it into this graphite locking mechanism here, and you tighten the screws down on the back. That clamps that string tightly into the saddle so that you can then use the string as is. Then you tune it roughly to where it should be with this level. In the case that it's not level, you then adjust these two screws to loosen or tighten these springs to make it level for your particular set of strings, because each string is going to have a different tension that you're going to want on it. The other thing is you need to stretch your strings out, because over time strings will shrink, or strings will stretch out, causing that tuning to go off. So what people will do is just kind of pull on the string and move it around a little bit while they're tuning it to get that string kind of stretched out a little bit so that it's not going to come out of tune as easily. The next thing you do once it's in tune normally, you lock. I always with these locking nuts, you always tighten them all the way down and then loosen them a quarter turn roughly. All three of those should be loosened just a tad while you're tuning it. So then you put all your strings up, you tune it, you get the bridge level, everything's in a relatively playable condition. Then you quarter turn lock all those nuts. At that point, you tune it with these little screws. And what that does is it pulls the string on the saddle back and forth to fine tune the guitar once it's in a playable configuration. And from there, you can then use your tremolo and you have a working guitar. So that's kind of the operation of a Floyd Rose guitar. This particular one, as I was saying, is kind of complete crap. It is one of the Floyd Rose knockoff licensed versions, under licensed from Floyd Rose is what it says on it. It's from Musically, and it's pot metal. And it's not made out of hardened or any type of normal steel that you would get from normal playable condition guitars. Because it's pot metal, the screws will eventually strip out at some point in time in the future, and that's exactly what happened to me on my bass string nut right here, the locking nut. It stripped the screw right out of the center of it, and that's after tightening and loosening it maybe probably 20 times. During those tightening and loosening sessions, it just stripped the screw threads right out of the nut. So I'm getting a new locking nut, an actual Floyd Rose locking nut, to replace that. That's going to be made out of hardened steel. I'm tired of dealing with this cheap Chinese bullcrap. So yeah, so that's where the progress is. I'm waiting for that locking nut to come in, and I'll replace that. Intonation. Let's talk a little bit about that. Intonation. To get these saddles in the proper position so that you can intonate. What I mean by intonate is the length of the string. If you hold it down here, it will have the same note as what the string resonance is. So it's called intonation. Look it up. You'll find plenty of videos. I had a couple different tool options for this. I went ahead and picked up the Ibanez tool, intonation tool for Floyd Roses. This did not work out of the box. And the reason why is because this cheap Chinese piece of crap Floyd Rose bridge, the graphite locking mechanism, the little nuts that you use are too thick. They're too long. They don't allow enough on the back of that locking system to push in this little tab into that so that you can use this to then loosen the screw and adjust the saddle. Because of that, I had to modify this tool a little bit, this Ibanez tool a little bit. File, and I filed down the end of this little peg that sticks out here that's supposed to slide into that slot. Once I did that, voila, I was able to intonate the guitar. So just future note, if you're going to pick up on these Ibanez ones, or pretty much any of them, have a file handy. Sometimes that helps. So if you ever get into that position where you're trying to use an intonation tool, maybe it's just shaped wrong, and grab a file and shape it to the right size. All right, thank you.